Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really do appreciate it. The City of Hoover has looked forward to having this community meeting in conjunction with Signature Homes and USX, so we're grateful for that and look forward to it. Just to let you know, I have a commitment at Monte d'Oro. I've had a long-standing commitment for about 60 days, so I hope to hear about the first 30 minutes of the presentation. But just to let you know how things will go tonight, Jonathan Belcher with Signature Homes will open up and tell you about the development side of it. And then Alan Rice with the City of Hoover is our city administrator. We'll talk about the sports complex and what that impact that has on the particular project. And then we'll hear from Dr. Murphy as well, who will tell us how it's going to affect the schools. And then Jonathan will close that out, and then we'll have an opportunity to have your questions asked and answered. So just to let you know, this council that we have here, as a matter of fact, I'd like to just introduce those that are here. I see John Lyda. John, stand up so they can see you. John doesn't have to stand up. He's always kind of running. John Green is here, I believe. I see Derek Murphy, Mike Shaw. Did I miss anyone? Who did I miss? Okay, great. And then we have our school board is here as well. We really appreciate that. President Stephen Presley, Craig Kelly, and Deanna Bauman are here. So we're looking forward to this. This council and myself, the school, of course, these two companies, we have committed to being open about this entire process, and that's why I said we're excited about tonight to share the vision for this particular area, and so we hope that you feel the same way too. So let's go ahead and get it started. We're going to have Jonathan come up and kick it off for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor Brigado. Just a few things. One, if you're hot or cold, James, would you raise your hand, please? We can adjust the thermostat. Second most important, restrooms are right around the corner if you've not been in here, so get those two important things out of the way. As Mayor Brigado said, my name is Jonathan Belcher. I'm with Signature Homes, and I've had an opportunity to speak to some of you last week, and tonight I'm going to make a lot of the same presentation, but also have some new information that we've worked on. A few things that I would like to share with you, though, about this process. Tonight is just an overview. This is a meeting that we want to be informative to the neighborhood. The zoning process itself will go through Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. That's this coming Monday night at 5:30 in the council chambers. From there, the Planning and Zoning's purpose is to be a recommending body. In the city's process, that will not determine a vote, whether they're favorable or not favorable. The city council is who ultimately makes a decision. Once the process leaves Planning and Zoning, then it would move to what's called a first reading at City Council, and then from there, and there's no vote made at the first reading, and then there would be a second reading at City Council, and that's when the councilman will vote on a particular case. Between now and then, it's not uncommon for an application to have changes to it based on feedback. That's what I hope to get tonight, is that we've presented what we think is our best plan. At the same time, we would like to hear feedback so we continue to make it a plan that best reflects the wishes of the neighborhood as well. So I'll step to the slides here now. So the overall plan, and did everyone get a handout in the back of the room? I know it's maybe difficult to see from the back, seeing the screen. Does anyone need a handout that didn't get one? Okay. So the overall plan is an amendment to the Trace Crossings PUD. PUD is a planned unit development. It's a type of zoning in the city of Hoover. Initially, Trace Crossings was planned back in the 1980s, I think. And this is what's considered an amendment to the Trace Crossings PUD. As a matter of fact, this is the 11th amendment to the PUD. So what I'm going to do is talk through each of the parcels that are identified on the map, explain our proposal to those, and as the mayor said, once I finish talking through the parcels that either affect us, Signature Homes, or U.S. Steel, then Mr. Rice is going to come in and talk more about the sports complex, and then again, Dr. Murphy. So, first and foremost, parcels 1 and 5. Both of these parcels are owned by Signature Homes. They consist of approximately 73 acres. They are bordered on the northwest side, or the top left side of the screen. That's the Creekside neighborhood. On the southeastern side is the Wilburn Lake development. You can see the lake there. That's the area that's under development now. The parcel 5 is currently zoned for homes, which is a PR1 zoning classification. The parcel 1 is currently zoned PC, which is planned commercial, and it's proposed to be rezoned to PR1 as well. Currently we have in the, I think it was the 10th Amendment to Trace Crossings, which was the Wilburn Lake community, that was planned for a group of homes to be built on a ridge top. Our proposal now is to change this to a park area that will be donated to the city for future use for trails and park area for public use. Parcels 7 and 13, both of these parcels are currently owned by United States Steel. Parcels 7 and 13 are currently zoned planned industrial, or PI. The location of these parcels, they're bisected by South Shades Crest Road, so that road cuts in between the two parcels. You can see Interstate 459 going across the top of those two. And then Brock's Gap is the area that kind of cuts into the green on parcel 13, and that's the intersection of where it touches South Shades Crest Road. The city has an agreement with U.S. Steel to purchase parcel 7, and that's for the consideration of the future interchange on the 459. The parcel 13, U.S. Steel has committed to donate that property to the Trace Crossings Residential Association. So that zoning will go from PI to PR1. But no homes will be planned there, and it will forever be protected as a common area as part of the Trace Crossings neighborhood. Parcel 11 is on the southernmost tip of the Wilburn Lake community. This land is owned by Signature Homes. A portion of this property, the area shaded in green, will be part of the land donated to the city for the Cahaba River Park area. The area in yellow, along with parcel 12, which I'll show to you in just a moment, will include the 141 homes that we are moving over from the Black Ridge PUD, which is adjacent to the Wilburn portion of this development. So now parcels 4 and 6, currently this land is owned by U.S. Steel and is currently zoned planned industrial, or PI, and planned industrial restricted. The right-hand side of, basically from the number 6, going up the screen is the portion that's zoned PI restricted, and the remainder is zoned PI. The total land of those two parcels is approximately 110 acres. Our proposal would change the back half, or parcel 4, which is approximately 65 acres, to PR1. And what we're doing is proposing a residential development there with no more than 80 home sites. I've got some slides a little later that I'll go back and show some perspectives a bit once we have Dr. Murphy and Mr. Rice speak. Then on parcel 6, the remaining there would be 45 acres, and the proposal is to change both the PI restricted and PI property to planned commercial. And again, that would be 45 acres on the remaining land. So now on parcels 3, well, I apologize, I didn't do a good job describing where that is, just in case. That's what's directly across from the Hoover Met now and bordering Stadium Trace to the southeast, and then northwest is Chestnut Ridge. So parcels 3 and 9 and also parcel 12. Signature Homes, we are under contract to purchase parcels 3 and 9 from U.S. Steel. We already own parcel 12 today. The parcel 3, which is adjacent to Bumpus Middle School and is at the end of Fleming Parkway there in front of the school, it is currently zoned planned industrial. We're asking to rezone it to PR1 or planned residential. The parcels 9 and parcel 9 and parcel 12 are currently in unincorporated Shelby County, and they are not part of the city of Hoover. Our proposal there is to annex those parcels, and then the area shaded in yellow, we would zone for approximately 200 homes across the 3 parcels, which is 3, 9, and 12. And so that combined with the other 80 homes on parcel 4 is 280 of the 421 homes that are included in our proposal. Those 280 homes in our submittal to the city are being moved over from a currently approved site which U.S. Steel refers to as Trigger Creek. It's located on Highway 52 and is in the city of Hoover right now. So the net difference to that is there's no additional homes being planned in the city. There are additional homes being added to the Trace Crossings PUD, some of which are being taken from the Trigger Creek property on Highway 52. Then the others are being moved from the Black Ridge property, which is just south of Wilbur. Okay, so this last page here is just a summary of the parklands that we have and which ones are going to be going to which place. There's a total of 282 acres. The area that I mentioned earlier that will go to the Trace Crossings Residential Association is approximately 51 acres. And the areas that are surrounding the sports complex, which will go to allow for expansion of it, is approximately 38 acres. I mentioned earlier the 73 acres that is adjacent to Creekside and at the end of the Stadium Trace Parkway now. And then finally, we have approximately 120 acres that has about 3 miles of frontage along the Cahaba River that will also be donated to the city as part of this proposal. So from this point, what I'd like is to ask Mr. Rice to come up and speak to this area, which involves the sports complex and the changes that impact it.
Good evening. They say the first thing you're supposed to do is give people reality, and the last thing you're supposed to do is say thank you. But I'm going to start out by saying thank you for being here tonight and showing your passion and your concern for what's happening in the city of Hoover. And I'm also going to thank our partnering agencies, both public and private, Hoover City Schools, the Hoover Park and Recreation Board, Signature Homes, United States Steel, for the discussions and the open, candid dialogue that has taken place to bring this plan to you tonight. There are several benefits that we see for specifically the Hoover Metropolitan Complex, of course the Hoover Met that we've known for quite a few years, and the Finley Center and the outdoor ball amenities that will be added there. I'm going to talk about those first, and then I want to enumerate a few benefits to the city as a whole. First, for the Hoover Metropolitan Complex, what we're proposing is a shift in Phase 2, which is the outdoor athletic facilities. So nothing changes about the Finley Center or the RV Park, but we're now, under the current plan, all of the ball fields, baseball and soccer/lacrosse fields, are in kind of a linear arrangement alongside the RV park. What you see in your handout will be the proposed new configuration. Essentially, the baseball fields don't really change location. They get shifted around. They kind of get pulled in a little bit, some minor modifications to where they lay. But the soccer fields would turn and move perpendicularly a little bit farther away and kind of tucked underneath the Met parking lot. There are several reasons for this, but the primary reason is to make way for a very exciting road that you're going to hear more about in just a minute that would connect the Hoover High School campus across the back of this area over to Bumpus Middle School. And I think that that's a piece that's been very important for the school system. I'll certainly let Dr. Murphy elaborate on that. And Jonathan, I want to thank you for letting me speak before Dr. Murphy and not after her, because I've followed her since her arrival in Hoover. She's the leader that we needed in Hoover City Schools. schools, but you don't want to have to follow her. She's smarter and funnier and more dynamic than I am. So Dr. Murphy's going to talk a little bit about the roads and what that means to them specifically. So we'll move the lower ball fields, soccer, lacrosse, football fields. We don't lose any amenities to the Hoover Metropolitan Complex. We're not cutting anything. We'll actually expand the size of those soccer fields to NCAA regulation size fields. That's good for our hometown recreational use, but it's also very good for potential sports tournaments that could be brought in through the revenue generating mechanism that we will have here with the Hoover Metropolitan Complex. So that's an improvement. We will be able to expand, and we're working parallel with a community group to expand the plan for a universally accessible playground. There was a playground originally in the design, but it was just kind of slotted in that, hey, we need a splash pad, we need a playground. Those plans are taking on life, and so every child in our community or any child visiting, regardless of ability, will be able to access all of the amenities on the new playground. It's going to be a very impressive, we're not aware of a playground of this magnitude in central Alabama. So we think we're going to have the most impressive community play facility in that regard. And moving some of these fields actually facilitates some of that. We expect an improvement to the project budget. So we're all aware that this is a very expensive endeavor. We are bumping up at the top of the available bond funds that were borrowed for this purpose. But we believe that by reconfiguring, by kind of squeezing some fields together, eliminating a little bit of the asphalt out of the original plan, and also by vacating the natural gas or the liquid petroleum pipeline right-of-way that runs through this property, we'll be able to save several $1 million. We'll then reinvest that money into the construction of the roads. There will be some additional design work because we're asking the engineers and the architects to change somewhat in midstream to allow us to rethink our plan. So we'll have to spend a little bit of money for their time, and that's fair. But we think that we'll be able to walk away with substantially greater amenities for the same or maybe a slightly lower price tag. And we're not here to tell you that we're going to trim tens of millions of dollars off of the budget, because that's not reality. But we do think that once the final price tag is established, we'll have a much better complex for the city, for residents, of course, and also for our partners in the school system. And we think we can save a little bit of money in the process. Some of the benefits to the city at large, moving just beyond the thought process of the Metropolitan Complex. Jonathan talked to you about the parkland. We're extremely excited about I think a net of about 170 acres total, about 120 of which lie along the banks of the Cahaba River. So that does a number of things. That preserves and protects at least our side of the Cahaba River. It also allows us to institute some recreational amenities. We're already thinking about trail networks. There really won't be a lot of structures down there. Most of it does lie in a floodplain, but we can develop it with a trail network, canoe, kayak launch, various different recreational opportunities that just are not available to us if we don't have that property. We're in a preliminary discussion with the Freshwater Land
A new
Trust,
station
who
alert has arrived.
quite so many years, had a trail master plan network for the Cahaba River corridor. So that's another external conversation with a partnering organization, and we think what we'll be able to do is decide what we want our park network to look, our trail network to look like on our 120 acres, but then make sure that there's connectivity on each end of our property to move beyond our own borders and connect to the trail network that they hope to develop over the coming many years. We are very excited about lower housing density. So there may be a lot of questions about this at the end, but I'm going to let Jonathan handle those. But this is, we think this is a fine feature of this overall plan. That the number, this is a very important point, the number of total rooftops for the city does not increase beyond what's already been approved. So the new land that you see on Jonathan's maps that's proposed residential, that's not more homes than are already about to be built in the coming years. They're just being moved. And you heard him talk about moving from one PUD to another. So that's no additional children to the school system. It's a little bit of reallocation of traffic, but it's not additional traffic. Those people were coming anyway. This allows us to spread those houses out over more acreage. That means bigger lots, In theory, that means higher sales price, which leads to higher ad valorem tax rates, both for the city and for the school system. We think that that's a benefit. We're very excited about the better use of land around this entire campus area, I suppose. And by that, we mean cleaning up some areas that are currently industrial, moving them to what we think is a more appropriate zoning configuration that will actually support the residences that are already here, those that are to be built, and this complex. So we think that we'll get the types of things built from a non-residential standpoint that will be added amenities and benefits as opposed to potentially a detriment to home buyers and current owners. Lastly, we're very excited about the road network. And again, I might steal a little bit of Dr. Murphy's thunder, but to be able to connect a road from Hoover High School around to Bumpus Middle School does a number of things. If you ever have or currently do have a child at Trace Crossings Elementary or Hoover High School, I'm sure many of us have or do now have a child in one of those two schools, all of us go through the intersection of Learning Lane and Stadium Trace, as do all the school buses, as do a whole bunch of other folks, people trying to get in and out of Park Trace. This will actually give us another feeder route on the back side of this large plat that will allow the high school to decide how they want to manage incoming and outgoing traffic. But it'll also give us a connector road from Stadium Trace, literally right back over here, I guess right over here, up beyond the lower parking lot that exists now, past Trace Crossings Elementary, between here and Trace Crossings Elementary. That road will serve some of our parking for the new ball fields, but it will also continue on and connect to the Hoover High School campus. And the thought process right now is to tie it into the loop road that goes around behind, kind of between the school and the football practice field. So we think, and this was all done in concert and in consultation with Dr. Murphy and her staff, we think that gives them lots of options for managing ingress and egress of cars to their campus. We like that because it's a boon for public safety, it's a boon for timing of traffic flow. So for the city as a whole, it's good. Obviously for Mr. Hewlin and the folks who have to contend with all those kids and all those buses and all those cars, and also the staff at Trace Crossings Elementary, we think that changes their lives for the good. So we're not adding children, but we are adding roads. I'll certainly let Dr. Murphy elaborate on that. Lastly, I alluded to it a minute ago, one of the things, probably an intangible, that we're the most excited about is the way that this came about. So the city was out here building a lot of ball fields and building a very nice, very large, multi-use indoor facility. We were doing our thing. We were building our project. And there were some developers and landowners that had projects in mind and were trying to figure out a way to make that work. And of course, we have partners in the school system. And what has resulted is a multi-channel dialogue among and between the public and private entities for everybody's mutual benefit. So when the original plan was brought to the city, hey, would you think about moving your soccer fields? And if you did that, it would allow this, and it would facilitate that, and we could do this. We were excited for our component, but then when we were able to bring Hoover City Schools into the dialogue, I think we have begun to communicate at a level that meets your expectations. And I think that as a community, you expect us to work together for the common good, and I think this is a very tangible example of that in this project. So with no further ado, the funny and smart and dynamic Dr. Kathy Murphy is next. Now you have to say something fun.
Well, I'll tell you what is fun. This is not my community meeting tonight, right? We had about 11 community meetings last year as we were talking about rezoning, and it was refreshing to come and just make a few comments and realizing that that you all are here for a very different purpose in some measure. I just must start by saying to you how delighted I am that this has not been a process by which we've just been kept posted or somewhat informed along the way. But rather than that, we have been absolutely engaged with our city and through this whole process. And I thank Mayor Brocato for doing that. Alan has been terrific. We've had lots of conversations. Tim, thank you so much. I was pitching questions out to him yesterday, last night late. He was calling me early this morning. And that's huge and refreshing, and I'm grateful. So thank you for allowing us to be engaged in the process. If you will look at this particular slide, and I don't guess we have a pointer, and maybe it's not necessary, but just wanted to make sure you see the visual of what I'm really delighted about as your superintendent, and that includes the 2 roads that give us some additional egress from Hoover High School. I was not here during Snowmageddon. However, I have heard the stories and how difficult it was to get into and out of that area at Hoover High School, as there's only one way in and one way out. And so now, as we've collaborated together, we have been able to create a couple of additional opportunities. We have a pointer there, right? Thank you for the pointer. So if you would share with them those 2 ways in and out, just so we're all on the same page. One goes across the parking lot area, which ties us from that back road at Hoover High School through the parking area and out onto Stadium Trace. We have a second road that allows us to come from the back of Hoover High School and ties into Bumpus School. Now you could immediately say, well, I see the downside already. Yes, it all still does dump out onto Stadium Trace, so I'm sure that'll be a conversation that comes to thought and to mind. But how important it is to us as we think about school safety to know that we have more than just one way into Hoover High School and one way out. God forbid that ever be a matter of concern for us. So that's important. We're not here to talk about whether we're ready to build a new high school or we're going to add on to Hoover High School, but this has been a very critical first step for us to know whether Hoover High School and any growth to Hoover High School, should that be the decision of this community and this board, is that even a possibility? One of those places where I just was really sort of putting my toe in the sand a bit, if you will, is I did not believe that we could have any additional growth at Hoover High School given our current only one in, one out opportunity. I'm not saying to you that I'm now ready to ask our board to begin any construction at Hoover High School. I'm just saying that was an important step for us to be able to be thoughtful forward about any growth that may be at Hoover High School should that be needed. So we're absolutely delighted with that opportunity. I am also delighted that there are no additional homes being added to this because, as you may well know, we have a proposed rezoning plan before the court, which has been preliminarily approved by the judge. And so if there was a lot of additional homes that had to come into play at this point, I think very clearly our school district would have to back up a bit in time and give additional thought to any additional rooftops, homes that are being built. I will say this very clearly, I don't care how many homes are built, we're going to love, nurture, and teach those children who come to our door, and that's our commitment always to do that. But it does not impede the progress, as I see it at this point, by adding any additional homes. There is the change that was mentioned as some of those homes from the south of Stadium Trace are being pulled up into the proposal that you see in front of us. And as a school district, we need to be thoughtful about those additional homes that's being pulled up. Help me just a minute, Jonathan, about how many homes? 280?
There's 141 from the Black Ridge development and 280 from the Trigger Creek property on Highway 52.
That are being pulled up into this proposal. So what we'll need to do as a school district is to give thought to those that are moving somewhat south up, and to what schools those individual students might be assigned. But I do want to say this. There is a preliminarily approved plan on the table with Judge Heikkila, which we respect and honor, and do not at this point, based on this plan, see any particular reasons for any of that to change, even though there has been a shift from some of those homes somewhat more southward back into the proposal that you see in front of you. So I do once again want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of the process, to be a part of the conversations. There is nothing about what is in front of me as it relates to my work as your superintendent that troubles me and that I would just basically say creates any heartburn or red flags for me as a superintendent. And certainly we are going to have the privilege of having the city come in at our board meeting on Monday evening and to share with our board also in a more formal approach this particular plan, which may generate some questions from our board, though our board, many of them are here and many of them have had, or all of them have had adequate opportunity to study and review. And should there be questions specific to the school district, I'll do my best to answer when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. So I do have, I have 5 or 6 more slides that are primarily related to parcels 4 and 6 that I referred to earlier. I want to briefly run through those, and then I'd like to open it up for questions. We are going to take notes of all the questions asked. We're not in the council chamber, so it's not we don't have the technology of the council, but I do want to make sure we notate any questions that we have tonight. I'll answer or clarify those that I can, and those that I cannot, we'll make note, ensure that we have those, and we'll get to work on answering those. So this is, again, parcels 4 and 6 on our rezoning plan. To the left or the northwest is the Chestnut Ridge community, and then to the southeast is Stadium Trace Parkway and the Hoover Met. What you'll see there is 2 lines that are cross sections. It's cross section A and B. Now these are not part of the handout that was in the back, but this one page with parcels 4 and 6 are located on there. What we did was we asked our engineer to go through and give us an example of what it looked like when you're looking from Chestnut Ridge down to the Hoover Met from a side perspective. And what we found from that is basically the homes that are on Chestnut Ridge, or Chestnut Trace is the street there, are approximately 120 feet above the location of the proposed homes, which would be, and I'm sorry my laser pointer doesn't work on the TV, so I'm going to use my map here. This top is cross section A that I was referring to, and this location is approximately 1/3 of the distance down Chestnut Trace coming from the entrance. This is the street location. This is the home site location. Here's a common area that varies in size, but is essentially between 75 and 150 feet in width. That's part of the Trace Crossings and Chestnut Ridge common area. And then there's an existing tree buffer here. This is the valley, which is the area that we have our proposed residential homes. And then there's a ridge that comes back up in the commercial area. We mentioned earlier this distance of the proposed PC property along Stadium Trace is approximately 500 feet from Stadium Trace back towards Chestnut Ridge. Then we have an area, our proposed residential, which is approximately 325 feet. I've got another slide. It's very challenging to read here. I'll show you in just a moment, but the buffer area that we're proposing that would be undisturbed, while in our PUD document we submitted, it says 200 feet. We've got an exhibit that shows the dimensions anywhere from 250 to just over 500 feet, depending on where you are on the Chestnut Trace. Section B, before I change here, this is about 2/3 of the distance down Chestnut Trace. And again, another cross section where, again, the homes are here on this ridge. The difference here is the buffer's a little bit longer in this portion of the neighborhood. The elevation difference between Chestnut Trace and the proposed homes is about 140 feet in this particular location. So the difference in the change in height is a little bit higher here at 140 feet versus 120 feet. Another location. This is the buffer map that is impossible to read here, but I have I've provided a couple of copies to some of the residents in Chestnut Ridge, and again I'm going to I'm going to make it a proposal as part of our proposal Monday night at Planning and Zoning to make this a document that's part of our PUD. What this shows is the dimension or the length from the back of each of the home sites in Chestnut Ridge of the buffer area that would be preserved. And this is where it ranges anywhere from approximately 250 feet to over 500 feet as you near the end of Chestnut Trace. The other area shown is this is the proposed PR1 or planned residential, and this is the proposed planned commercial that's there now. Again, Stadium Trace Parkway, and then here's Brock's Gap. So the architect that we work with a lot, we asked him to just give a perspective of what this would look like in our proposal. What you see here is the Hoover Met. This is Stadium Trace Parkway. Here on this ridge top is Chestnut Ridge. It looks like this area is bigger, even though I just said this is the shorter area. Just think of it as a perspective, look at three-dimensionally at this. This is the power line that runs through a portion of the area there. Here is the proposed homes that we have in that 325-foot area, and this would be the planned commercial or proposed planned commercial areas. We've got a total of 3 entrances that would be connecting this property to Stadium Trace. One would be here at the southernmost end and would line up directly with Fleming Parkway. The second would be here, basically in the center of it, and line up across from Mineral Trace, which is just past the main entrance to the Hoover Met. And then the third would be off of Brock's Gap. This is Discovery Church here as well. And then I don't have a proposal for the planned commercial here because we don't know what the use is going to be right now. What we have now is as opposed to planned industrial, this proposal. And as I mentioned earlier, this total land area goes from approximately 110 acres of either planned industrial or planned industrial restricted to 45 acres of planned commercial. Just a little more information on the home sites, the site plan, and then that would be an example of just a break off of one of the streets of a group of 4 of the homes there, just to give some type of idea of the type of style that we would be proposing for the homes. So that's all the information I prepared tonight. So I'm open for questions, comments, feedback, and then if need be, I'll repeat it to the room and make sure we get it. Okay? Yes, sir.
Back to the cross section. Where was the Stadium Trace on the cross section?
So in cross section A, Stadium Trace is approximately 1,100 feet from Chestnut Trace. And it's approximately the same here on cross-section B, actually a little bit further away on cross-section B. So it's on the far left-hand side here. This is the Hoover Bed on cross-section A, and then here's the Parkway.
Is there any change to the road, Stadium Trace? Will it attach in any way to Highway 52?
No, sir. Thank you for asking that. When we presented our Black Ridge PUD last year, the Black Ridge development, which is at beyond the end of Stadium Trace Parkway now, it will become a gated community and will not allow access from Highway 52. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, I'm a little bit concerned with all the planned commercial. And I guess my question, well, what I see here on my chart, there's almost 25 different uses. So my question would be, can we limit or restrict some of those uses? And maybe could we do a village type of development that we see at Ross Bridge and we also see at Rizzo?
Okay, thank you for the comment. Probably one I can't answer tonight, but certainly we'll consider that, and we'll work with U.S. Steel on some suggestions on how we can accomplish that.
John, could I make a quick comment on that?
Yes, sir.
You used the magic word that we use in development conversations at City Hall.
What is that?
And that is village. And so when new projects have come in, we've actually used that descriptor to try to encourage developers to think in those terms.
Great.
Less big parking lot and flat storefront and more village circulation.
Okay.
Can't force them in every case, but we can surely encourage them to adopt that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Molly McGregor, and I was the one that brought you guys out in August, and this is how the whole ball got rolling. And I appreciate the outturn tonight. Congratulations. You guys own your town. I think it's wonderful. But I also want to thank Jonathan Belcher, because when we were at that crossroads at that zoning meeting, we were asked to come together with U.S. Steel on some kind of conversation so that we could talk to them about what we thought would be appropriate village stuff. That did not occur. But did not occur because Jonathan Belcher took the lead on creating a master plan for the entire area and bringing in all the different partners. So I think it's long overdue. The city should have been on top of this, but cities change, and we're the ones that helped make that change. But I want to address, and I know this is not a zoning meeting, but I'm asking you council people and those zoning board people to take this into consideration. Number one, the turkey is still on the table. The reason we came together was the commercialization of number 6 and the property behind that. While everything else is being planned lovely for us, and the valley between Chestnut Trace and Stadium Trace is being developed with good housing opportunities, I think that's great. But the turkey's still on the table. And I would recommend to the city that you absolutely do not change any kind of zoning on that property for U.S. Steel until they bring a purchaser to the table and can show sight lines and design elements and traffic studies and parking, etc., following the comprehensive plan, which may not have been adopted, but it has been used by the zoning board, visiting neighborhood commercial. Not community commercial, but neighborhood commercial. Number 2, I think it behooves the city to talk to individual citizens, and there's a couple of folks in our neighborhood that have experience in this, and identifying the covenants that can be placed on that property before any kind of zoning change is done, so that it does look like a village and you don't just trust the developer to bring that to the table. But I would ask you to consider a third proposal. Many of you know that I was a project manager for the Birmingham Crossplex, and it's been in the news a lot lately because they went and put a bunch of commercial stuff on the balance of that property that should have been additional sports fields, and I just got confirmation on that from the president of the Birmingham City Council saying he felt that they made a mistake, but he wasn't driving that train, it was the mayor. I think it's important for you to understand that 15 or 20 years down the road, you don't know what you're going to need in additional sports facilities. You need to hold on because you are now landlocked except for the park area. And you don't want to take that park area for additional soccer fields or lacrosse fields. But you have a piece of prime property right there that's right across the street from parking and adjacent and would not hurt the neighborhood. Bad commercial will hurt the neighborhood. There are 1,500 homes in Trace Crossings and 3 schools. Think before you make a mistake on commercial development. Keep it on Highway 150 where the families want to be able to walk from a hotel to a coffee shop. But if you have to put commercial on there, by God, plan it and make sure it's neighborhood friendly.
Thank you. Molly, thank you. Excuse me just a second, Tom. Thank you. We are videoing, and I know Mr. Singer's recording, so if we didn't write all that down accurately, we will be able to go back and watch it. So thank you very much. I'm going to get one here, and then I'll step back here, okay? Yes, sir.
What's the timeline on everything getting started from start to finish?
Well, it all is dependent upon the zoning process. The zoning process will take a few months to go through both planning and zoning and city council, so it's dependent upon that. But if the zoning is approved, then it would start within probably 4 to 6 months after that. From the city standpoint, as Mr. Rice said, there's re-engineering work that's taking place to accommodate the new road infrastructure, so that'd be better to answer those questions. Yes, sir.
Did I understand you correctly to say that parcel number 13 would be donated to the Trace Crossing Residential Association?
I believe that was parcel 11. No, it was 13. Yes, sir.
It is. So that means that U.S. Steel doesn't have to pay taxes on it. The people in Trace Crossing Residential Association have to pay taxes. But since Trace Crossing Residential Association is controlled by U.S. Steel, that U.S. Steel basically can do anything they want to that piece of property. Thank you.
Well, I can't argue the tax side of it, which is no different than the other common areas that are located throughout Trace Crossings. The common areas that are along Chestnut Ridge, there's property taxes due on those. The positive to that is parcel 13 becomes a great buffer for all the residents who live in Scout Creek in this area here, and U.S. Steel will not be able to do whatever they want to with that property. It will move forward with restrictions that do not allow for any changes to that property. No homes can be built there, no commercial development will take place there. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, one behind you there. No, you
I'm not sure who needs to address this, perhaps our city manager can. But I heard Dr. Murphy say she's not concerned because the net number of homes isn't changing. But I am concerned about traffic, primarily because the sports complex is new, and that's going to put more traffic, in addition to what I perceive as the potential for traffic from the homes, depending on the mix of the buyers. So what's the latest traffic study and what was taken into account?
And I can jump to it just for a minute, if you don't mind. So a couple of changes, or I think there were a total of 4 changes. And our engineer is here, not the traffic engineer, but he'll correct me if I misstated any of these. But there'll be a red light added at Fleming Parkway, which would be which is this location here, at the entrance of Bumpus Middle School, which will be our 3rd access point to the residential property. There will be a red light added here. Of course, there's these additional roads that would help with the morning school traffic. By having this additional access to Hoover High School, I think it's going to have a tremendous impact on the elementary school traffic in the morning by providing that bypass. There's an additional right turn lane at Highway 150 that is going to be added, and what else am I missing?
There's a right turn lane in the learning lane from northbound Stadium Trace.
Okay, so then an additional right lane turn into learning lane off of Stadium Trace heading north.
The bottleneck is Stadium Trace, and it continues to be. There's only one way in, one way out.
Right.
And that's not safety.
Well, I think I'd go back. I understand that. I've lived in Park Trace and Scout Creek and had experience with that as well. I think one thing that's going to have a big impact to that is the city's efforts to go in and purchase this parcel 7 and move forward with a proposed interchange. If that does move forward, then that's going to be a significant change to that traffic circulation by providing that access there. And we got one in the back that was next.
A couple comments and questions. First, we haven't heard anything about the price point or size of these homes and the potential sort of estimated number of children that will come to the school system. So do you have any information on that? Second, we've got a 120-acre sort of greenbelt park zone buffer along the riverfront. Can you talk more about that? What is that going to look like? Why can that just be, that can essentially be unperturbed? We already have a Cahaba River Trail that many of us enjoy. We don't necessarily want that to change. So when you talk about a park, we don't know what you're envisioning for a park. How limited will it be? And then the last thing, and then I'll be quiet. I've been back to the Lake Wilburn area and looked at where that development is going. And what I would ask you to do is be much more creative on these new developments than you were there. Because you absolutely gutted that area. Can you not be more creative and preserve some of the more mature trees and things as you move into these developments?
Okay, so the first question was regarding the price point of the homes and the number of children. I think we addressed the number of children earlier in speaking to, there are no additional children more than what was already planned from the city standpoint. Does not increase the number of homes that were already planned for this western side of the school system. The second one, as far as the price point of the homes, we've built approximately 80% of the homes over the last 5 years in the city of Hoover. Our typical homes that we're building range anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000, or really probably the mid 300s to 600,000 range, and we would expect that to be consistent on both of these developments. Thirdly, as far as the Wilburn development, I think that you're seeing a very small portion of it. When we submitted that plan, there's 41% of that site being preserved. The city requirement's 20, and that does not contemplate the additional 73 acres that we committed to as part of this rezoning plan that's located on parcel 5 and 1. So that is in addition to what we originally planned, which is another 18%. So in total, when you see the Wilburn development completed, it's 48% of that site will be undisturbed from what was originally planned there.
Maybe you just touched on the riverfront zone.
Thank you, I'm sorry. So that portion is to be donated to the city. So if Mr. Rice wants to answer that, because we feel like the same way you do. That is a portion of property that the public should have influence over.
Can you hear me okay? In the worst case scenario, we don't do anything, and it's a wonderful environmental buffer, and it's undisturbed. We don't know what we would put down. Tonight, we don't know what we would put down there. We're eager to have it and have control of it. We certainly, there are several moving parts in the background. We have our first city planner position advertised now. You know, a great city planner, www.hooveral.org, you can apply. That person's first task will be to work with the entire community and our elected leadership to develop a true comprehensive community master plan that so many of you have an interest in having. Surely a piece of that has to be recreational amenities. So it could be that feedback tells us people don't want anything down there. They want the undisturbed buffer. There could be some low-impact uses. We've had some very preliminary discussions with the school system about the ability for the cross-country team, for an outdoor ecological educational area, not buildings, but a very low-impact type. So we don't know. The worst thing that happens is we get it, we own it, we protect the river, we preserve every tree that's down there. Other cases would involve minimal, low-impact recreational amenities. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
And just one other comment on that 120-acre area. That, what I proposed earlier is that area to accommodate approximately 200 homes. You still had zoned the land in Shelby County for just over 350 homes. While Mr. Rice is correct, there's a lot of that area that's in a floodplain and floodway. We also protected a lot of the upland areas so that if the city did choose to put structures there, they could be built in an area that's not in the floodway or floodplain. And there's a fair amount of that property that is out of those elevations.
If the school buses go away, and there's that many more parents bringing children in, I don't know that these extra roads that you plan for with the extra houses is going to let us get in or out any time of day except when school is out or in.
Okay, so the question was if the school buses went away, the impact that would have. No, that would be out of my expertise to speak to, but we'll certainly make note of that. Unless anybody from the school board wants to comment.
The planning board will take note of that.
Well, we'll make note of all of the questions tonight. Thank you.
Don,
Yes, sir.
can you go back to this slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my question is what were the factors that went into the proposal to connect the Chestnut Trace, the two Stadium Trace, right there where it shows number 6? That road there, it looks like to me like it's going up the hill and connecting in the Chestnut Trace?
No, sir, it does not connect. This is the proposed residential plan that we have. There would not be a connection from this residential area in the valley up to Chestnut Ridge.
So
there would be no connection. Chestnut Ridge would remain gated and no other tie-ins.
So is that, am I mistaken in that's not correct then?
Well, this yellow area is half of the currently zoned property that's planned industrial, restricted and planned industrial. We reduced that commercial area from 110 acres down to 45. So we're using a part of that land for residential, and it does not connect to Chestnut Ridge.
But it just looks like on the map that that's a road there proposed.
Well, this would be the new road, the new residential area that we're proposing here.
Okay, I got you. Do you understand? Yeah. I got you now. I got you. Okay.
Start over here.
And the 6 is going to be.
Yes, sir.
6 is going to be
They're commercial. They're proposing it to be commercial.
Where would that come in, and would it be able to connect to the south end of the Stadium Trace some way? To get another way out of Stadium Trace?
I'm not familiar with the engineering plans of that. Mr. Rice, you want to speak to that?
I'm not yelling at you, I'm yelling so they can hear me. The thought process right now, and basically this is not just really a thought, it's based on engineering that was done several years ago when that project was first proposed, is that it would actually connect, there would be a new connector road from Ross Ridge Parkway, Highway 150 to Cross Gap Parkway. Across the interstate and across the piece of property that we're working to purchase right now and connect it to Ross Gap. So there would be another way out. It wouldn't be all the way down at the end. It would be at where Ross Gap intersects Stadium Trace, and we just go all the way out that way and straight across South State to the city.
But instead of going all the way through Box Gap, is there any way to take off of there and come to the south end? Stadium Trace?
No, sir, there's no other location. We'll go ahead.
Tim Weston is our Chief Operations Officer and an engineer and has lived the interchange project, so I'm going to defer to him on what some of the options were to explore.
I would just say that existing development along South Shades Crest and where the existing development is very difficult to make that connection.
Railroad track.
You've got two railroad tracks that you're dealing with, and you've got homes, you've got subdivisions, you've got elevation. So it's very difficult.
Okay, yes, sir.
You mentioned a new red light at Queen Parkway. The other items where Mineral Trace and New Road at the south or the lower parking lot, either of those plan to have stoplights?
No, sir. Not.
Now, one of the issues with the one that's going to be going through the lower parking lot there beside the lower soccer fields is that there's a very steep grade. And steep grade intersections are just recipe for collisions, especially with no traffic control. I'm not advocating a stoplight, but I'm advocating building a little bit of a ridge so that the car, especially kids coming out of school, learning to drive, that's going to be a bad intersection.
I understand. And that portion will be a city project, but we'll also make sure we note that and share that. Yes, ma'am.
Jonathan, we appreciate everything that you've done, and you've done an awful lot of work, and it looks well done, well planned. On the slide that has 4 and 6, if part of this gets approved for example, the houses, but the neighborhood or the community is not inclined to change the zoning for 6 or to be restrictive with 6, does that prevent 4 from happening? And the reason I'm asking that is because when this all went to the planning and zoning in October, the instructions were for U.S. Steel to meet with the community. And we've heard from everybody tonight, our mayor, Signature Homes. We've not heard anything from U.S. Steel. We don't know what they are planning or what their requests are. So it doesn't appear that U.S. Steel has been as active in this process as maybe you have been and the city has been. That's just my take on it.
Okay.
But can part of this be approved and move forward without all of it being approved?
Well, the city council members can decide that. Yes, ma'am. I will say, we had to first work with U.S. Steel and present this proposal to them. And yes, and part of that is probably because I volunteered to say I'd like to handle the communication because of the large amount of this that we're directly influencing. So, but to answer your question, to parcel 6, whether or not that went forward, part of that would be up to U.S. Steel. If they desire to continue the application, they certainly have the right to stop if they see that that's not favorable from their standpoint. And then, again, the city council will get to vote on that. And if they want to make a motion at that time to change what we presented, they have the right to do that as well. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, I'm Greg Williams, president of Chestnut Ridge Owners Association. When we first kicked this off looking at parcel 6, the main concern that we had as residents were box hotels going in there. And we knew that if you changed the zoning, then it would be open to picking up a contract or anything. And I appreciate the village approach, and I think that's well and good. But I don't know why we've got to rezone that at this point to either, number one, what Molly said, to whether the city can really use that property in the future to expand all this area, or secondly, that we can be guaranteed that we're not going to have box hotels or problems there. There were safety comments made at that particular meeting. There was a young man that came from Park Trace and gone up there. There's kids right across there. There's an entire host of safety problems with the box hotel and people that are coming in. And that's a major concern of all of us over there. And I haven't seen a police analysis or a safety analysis of how they would manage the property either. So my suggestion to the city council and the mayor would to be table 6 until we get a plan that everybody can be happy with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's, again, a good part of why we're here tonight, is to receive that feedback so that I can go back and work with U.S. Steel and share that feedback with them as well. So thank you, Mr. Williams. Yes, ma'am.
Unless I'm incorrect, it's all, if not the majority, if not all of the businesses or offices or whatever that are around this area off of Stadium Trace are 2 stories in height. Is there a way that we could restrict the height of the commercial to have it not exceed 2 stories?
Sure, there are certainly ways to do that and make that a part of or a condition of the zoning. In the back, yes, sir.
Can you pull up the slide 9, 3, and 12? My question kind of follows the one we have here. Concerning the development, as they kind of cleared the line, parcels 12, 3, and 9, are you going to do similar development there? And will that affect the values with the dilution of the number of homes of the same type in the same area? And in fact, one more question. Notice that you developed 80% of the homes over the last how many years? I think it would be smart for us to look what the values of those homes did up to this point, so we can look back on our past and see how it developed, how it affected where we are now, as far as home values.
So do I hear that you have a concern that we would devalue your home with our proposed plan?
Would it devalue those areas 9 through 12 with there being similar homes of that high number in the Lake Wilburn area as well?
Well, our opinion would be no. I mean, one, we think it's a great benefit being next to this preserved 160-acre, 120-acre park area along the river, the proximity to all 3 of the schools, proximity to the sports complex. We think those are all very favorable. As far as the method of how we'll develop those properties, we've not gone through the full amount of engineering for those areas, which is not typical at this early stage from a zoning standpoint. But what we will do is the topography will generate a lot of those decisions. But part of the land that we gave up, as I mentioned earlier, which as opposed to taking all this as a whole and developing it, that's why we took a portion of it and decided to give that to the city so public use could occur.
I guess the diversity of the homes would maybe help create uniqueness to give value to homes that are in the same area that have the same privileges of being close to school and business areas, but at the same time, not the same thing in such a close area. Trying to, not to say
Well, one thing we do is we study the home sales that occur within the city of Hoover and certainly other cities that we build in. We study the resales because the resales set the value for new homes. And that's something that we have never experienced when we've came in and built a development of signature homes, that's caused a decline in property values on adjoining property. So I've yet to experience that in our plans. We take that into careful consideration because we want to enhance the communities that we build in. We've been building for many years. We built a lot of homes in the city of Hoover, and for us, it's important that the long-term benefit stays in place. Otherwise, it's going to cost us as a company. We wouldn't be around if that was the kind of impact that we had. Yes, sir. Then I'll come back to you, Mr. Carl, when we're here.
Can you address specifically the size and price points of the homes that you're planning on building in Section 4?
So conceptually, this is something that the architect designed for us over this past week, and hearing some feedback from the residents at Chestnut Ridge. We took that strip of land, which is we only took a 325-foot width, and it's approximately 4,600 feet long, and came up with a concept that varies throughout. What we would expect those homes to be is probably the mid-300s to mid-400s range. We could have a little bit higher price points. I know this is very difficult to see, but part of this proposal, what you saw earlier was this particular configuration. These home sites are 120 feet wide. The typical home site in Chestnut Ridge is 75. So what we're proposing, that's going to back up against the same area we want to preserve for Chestnut Ridge's benefit. It's going to benefit the homes, the future homeowners that we would build for as well. And I expect to get a good value for those homes that enjoy that. So I don't have a specific answer, but it won't be less than that $350,000 to $450,000 range. Land is very valuable in the city of Hoover. Yes, Mr. Carr.
Do you have the price range? Have you thought yet about construction of those homes, brick siding, load?
Short answer is no. We like to react to what the market tells us they're interested in. And so it varies across communities. We have some communities that include no brick or very little brick. We have some that are included in all brick. So that would be a decision that we would move closer to as we get closer to time from a development standpoint. Yes, sir.
Who owns the land between those homes and Chestnut Ridge? Both of them.
So the buffer area between would become a common area that would be restricted, and ultimately would become part of the association.
Trace crossings?
Yes, sir. All these proposals would be part of the Trace Crossings Plan Unit development. Yes, ma'am.
So I didn't hear an answer to my question about the most recent traffic study, when that was conducted. So just my point is, I expect to have that answered. And then the other thing is, I heard you say you're going to have a road from Ross Bridge connected to Brock's Gap. So you have just dumped more traffic onto Brock's Gap. So come to Chestnut Ridge or Creekside some morning between 7:25 and 8:30 and try to get in or out of those subdivisions. And you've just made the situation worse with what you are proposing. We need something that will alleviate the congestion that we have on Brock's Gap, and I have heard nothing tonight that addresses that.
Let me see if I can help. Let me start in and go back. Nothing in this plan tonight would do any connection of Brock's Gap to anything. That would be.
It just adds homes.
Okay, no ma'am, what I said was if the interchange goes in place, which is probably 10 years, maybe from now, probably longer, then the plan would be to connect the end of Brock's Gap across South Shades Crest, across the interstate to Ross Bridge. That's not part of this, so I just wanted to clarify. That's not coming from this project. The only roads that we would be proposing would be from the high school around to Bumpus, and then from Stadium Trace back up to the high school. So
Well, I would urge you to please reconsider that connection as part of that interstate.
The interchange, yes, ma'am.
Please do.
And all that is, I mean, those are traffic studies that certainly have to happen. That's nowhere in our immediate future. We're literally at step one of, I don't know how many years, and trying to re-secure some federal funding. So that That's not happening anytime soon, just to alleviate that concern. About the traffic study up and down Stadium Trace, Tim, we have had one, but I think it has a little age on it now. Is that something that would be repeated before the?
For this development?
For this, up and down Stadium Trace, and I guess specifically the impact of the proposed commercial, is that the thought process?
Well, and the sports complex is gonna dump more traffic on every road in and out of Trace Crossing.
Right, so can you speak a little bit to the status of traffic studies?
Well, actually, I think Jonathan can probably address that, but there actually was a traffic study done, that took a look at what was going on here, and came up with those 4 additional improvements that were required to handle that. That included the sports complex at this point.
The city requires anytime there's a change in a PUD or plan unit development such as this, a traffic study is required to be performed. So there was a traffic study recently submitted with this application, which I think was turned in late January, which contemplated the change in the residential and the road infrastructure changes that we spoke to earlier. That was only tied to the residential homes that went into play, and that's what that included.
That didn't include that.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
I just have an observation during SEC where in years past, I live in Park Trace, and we would get a letter from the mayor with a placard saying, put this on your, visor, and you'll have no issue getting in and out of your neighborhood. We prefer that you turn into Magnolia versus going up to Learning Lane. But when I was working, thankfully, I don't do that anymore, I'm retired, but it was like there was no police to direct traffic at Magnolia, and everybody was so anxious once the games were over to get the heck out of the neighborhood that they, it would be maybe nighttime when I was getting off from work, and nobody could see the little placard to let you in and out. So it's just kind of a bottleneck at that one juncture.
So we have Erin Cobalt, who's our events coordinator, and I think she's hearing that. Not Erin's fault. She would know that we need to work with the police department to get a better traffic plan for the residents. But that is clear that we need to keep traffic time for this property.
Right, because I know just the SEC, but we're going to look at a whole lot more events.
Your potential is good. Yeah, you're exactly right. So we'll, can you make a note? Thank you. You guys, thank you. That's a very valid point.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I also live in Park Trace, and there are times of the day when it's impossible if you come down Stadium Trace Parkway to make a left turn across Stadium Trace and get into Park Trace. And I'm wondering if eventually we might expect to have a stoplight there or something. There's also a daycare or a little school across the way.
How dangerous.
I think Stadium Trace Parkway is a major problem, because I don't know how you're gonna make it any bigger. And you're gonna have a lot of increased volume of traffic between the proposed shopping center, between the sports complex, between all these homes. So I would like that addressed, if there's any way to have another ingress and egress out onto 150 for people in Park Trace, and, just everybody who's using those roads.
Okay, we'll certainly add that to our feedback tonight. Thank you. Yes, sir.
May I ask who the gentlemen over here who are taking furious notes are?
They work with me.
Okay, I want to know.
That's our digital recording system.
No,
One's videoing and 2 are writing questions to make sure one didn't get it, the other one did.
It's good.
So again, we don't have that. Yes, sir. They're our bouncers. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, this presentation is 100% better than anything that has been proposed before.
Thank you.
But there still is the problem with Stadium Trace. How you, I don't know if Dr. Murphy was referring to just the little houses that are going to be around there, but she was not including what you have planned for Wilborn. Where were those people going to put their kids in school?
She did have that information. While she didn't mention it tonight, I have met with her numerous times, and when she was first creating her zoning plan 2 years ago, I shared that information with her. Because Wilburn, the PUD for Wilburn, or that amendment to the Trace Crossings PUD, was 2012, so she certainly did have that information available to her. Now, it's clearly the conversation on Stadium Trace, we understand. It's again nice that we have some of our city councilmen here tonight and staff members from Hoover, and it's something that we'll work on to address.
But there's no way to get people out of Wilborn even. There's no way. And if you're talking about putting them onto Brock's Gap, that ruins the whole of Brock's Gap. You might as well have a traffic light at the head of any one of those intersections.
I understand, thank you.
Jonathan, we keep talking about, we haven't changed the numbers. Wilborn, is that about 1,100 homes?
Wilborn is 499.
Total homes that we're talking about in this entire project?
Wilburn is 499. This PUD is an additional 421, some of which are moving from Black Ridge, and the other one's moving from the other side on 52.
But the total numbers are going to be just under 1,000 for all of the...
That's correct. And then in the Black Ridge development, that was one where last year we significantly reduced those homes because we had that site was approved for approximately 3,400 homes, 3,450 I believe, and we reduced it last year to 1,150. So that was a reduction of about 2,300 homes that, while it is still a new additional homes, we've made a significant drop and brought a, back to the question I was asked earlier, brought a completely different style and design of homes. They were going to be, we'll have home sites there in the $250,000 range. Yes, ma'am, we'll go here. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Well, I know nobody's in business not to make money, so I get all this, and I'm just kind of wearing my heart on my sleeve with maybe for the Mother Nature lovers back there, but do you do environmental studies? I love the fact that you're talking about putting some, city some of the property back to Harbor River, the city, that's fantastic, but I don't know if anybody's been out here on the roads at night, but you probably, I've seen 5, 7 dead deer recently. When I come out here at night to walk the dogs and stuff, please come get me half the time. But there's 40 or 50 deer crossing this parking lot every night. And I just think about all this property that, I saw a fox the other night out. I know people have lost dogs to coyotes. And I'm just curious, is there any kind of environmental studies done? And how do we, I know we can't just, pick up all the little animals and move them to a mountain or something, but like I said, I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve, but it just kind of, I don't know, what can we do about that? And I think that's a safety issue as well for people.
That's a great question, and there are multiple studies done. There's an endangered species study done on every site prior to development. There's a cultural resources study done. There's a study, the Corps of Engineers permit requires multiple studies. One of it is from the Historical Preservation Society. All those studies were performed on all these properties prior to us submitting these plans. And the city doesn't allow us to start work until the Army Corps of Engineers releases the permit for that. So, and I'll refer back to the Black Ridge development. We look at every one of these sites on a different basis, and that Black Ridge, from a company standpoint and the making profit, we would have been much better off building 3,500 homes on the parkway, extending the 4-lane parkway all the way to 52, but instead we cut that by 2/3 and took an entirely different approach, which preserves a ton of acreage that otherwise would have been disturbed by that. So we do, and every site is unique to that. So I appreciate the comment, and I agree with you. Yes, ma'am.
A couple of things. The first is traffic. I know that everybody talks about it. What people may not be as familiar with our rezoning plan is that those homes that are behind Wilborn and Black Ridge are zoned for South Chase Crest. So buses and traffic will be going on to Brock's Gap from there. So that is, Brock's Gap will also have additional traffic going in the opposite direction, which actually isn't as bad right now. It's more trying to come to Stadium Trace. So keep that in mind also when we are thinking about traffic, and then many years down the line when there's that connector, I don't even know how backed up it'll get immediately right there into that elementary school. So, again, having those two access points still are kind of a bottleneck. Brock's Gap Parkway is on the second is that commercial area. Because
kids who are going to be in these schools for the next 12 years, I would ask that the city council really consider a lot of restrictions on that commercial property. In terms of the village feel, but what types of things can be there. I mean, we are talking about an elementary school that would be right across the street from that commercial property. So it's very important, for us to put whatever restrictions we can to make sure that it is safe for our kids. And I also wonder too, is that we're zoning that commercial, but we have another commercial property that has been zoned to be developed since I moved to Trace Crossing 8 years ago that is still sitting empty.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Yes, sir.
So the kind of the global issue of traffic on Stadium Trace is here now, and, it's here. So Tim Westover and I sat yesterday with the traffic engineering firm that has done a 40-year kind of inventory of where are our trouble spots in the city, if we did this, if we built that, if we could extensive. What impact would it have today, and what impact would it have on proposed traffic 40 years from now? So there are a couple of options contained within that inventory that could help address Stadium Trace. So it's not that we don't know, it's not that there aren't any potential answers out there. We're just now receiving the engineering work that will help us recommend to the city council priorities citywide, and there are a lot of people moving up and down Stadium Trace, like I have to tell you, right? So there are opportunities to explore some solutions there. These are not this year things either. It's not probably as long as the interchange, but it's not 2017, if that helps.
So we need to get that information before we approve all of this.
Right, and we now have it, and so now it's a matter of trying to figure out what solution is
They shouldn't make a
achievable.
zoning decision until that information is available.
That certainly can be presented at planning and zoning as an associated factor. I mean, there will have to be a
It's
traffic.
fine, except for Stadium Trace and the
Right.
6 and 4.
I think it's challenged tonight. Now, I think we have traffic challenges now. I think you're exactly right, and so there are some opportunities to figure out how do we address it.
I mean, people are saying they want to move out of here now already because they know what it's going to be like. I don't know where the Wilborn people are going to come from, where they're going to get in and out.
So as you look at,
Originally, that thing was supposed to be 1,527 houses.
And it's
talking about.
far less now, right?
so as you look at easement for the zone 6, are you considering that easement for additional lanes for Stadium Trace?
Could you ask your question again, make sure I understand?
Along Stadium Trace and the area, the zone 6, the area 6 for commercial, are you considering extending the easement so you would have additional lanes for construction on Stadium Trace?
Well, so I think one of the points that was made earlier about knowledge of what would happen on parcel 6, that would trigger an additional traffic study to be made. We provided the traffic engineers our proposal from a residential standpoint, and that was the feedback that we received earlier. Whether that's U.S. Steel or someone they sell that property to, they would again have to come back and provide an additional traffic study of what is to be done on parcel 6 and how it would impact Stadium Trace Parkway. Yes, sir.
Is there any cost sharing on the road between Bumpus and High School? Is that because it services a lot of parcel 9? Is City Hall pick up any cost of that road, or is that a city project entirely?
There's cost sharing. There's multiple cost sharing, and in addition to Signature giving 282 acres or 231 to the city, which would allow for the moving. And one of the big impacts that our donation made is allow for the city to not have to relocate the pipeline, as Mr. Rice spoke to earlier. So we're giving up property that we paid for. We're also sharing in some of the traffic improvements as well. So yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One more dumb question. I'm a fisherman. How much public access are we gonna have to Lake Wilburn?
I'm not giving you any.
That's great.
We have I'll take you out there whenever you want to go. There is a canoe launch that we have planned right here at the top of the lake that'll be part of our We just submitted what's called a conditional use plan, like the pool and the amenity building, and alongside of it, we'll have a canoe launch there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just want to clarify, if I understood what you said, if I add up Black Ridge, Wilburn, and this PUD, that's about 2,000 homes.
That's correct.
And how many homes are currently in Trace Crossing, excluding Willow Trace?
Excluding Willow Trace, 1,200 or so.
So this is almost a 200% increase in homes in Trace Crossing that access and utilize Stadium Trace Crossing, right?
That's a factual statement.
So I think that needs to be put into perspective. We're talking about traffic, about green space, and so forth. That is a substantial increase in homes. I still don't know, I'm sure Dr. Murphy knows, I still don't understand the impact of those 2,000 homes on the projected number of students enrolling in the school, and the traffic associated with that.
Well, in each one of those particular plans, again, as I mentioned, so the property that was annexed in the city of Hoover in 1993, which is the Black Ridge property and the Sugar Creek property, again, we reduced that from almost 3,500 homes down to 1,150. At that time, a traffic study was prepared for the city. Prior to Dr. Murphy putting together her rezoning plan, I did a study of all the future homes to be built in the city, provided that for her, and then also looked at the ratios from the forecast that the city school board had done as well, and put that into a spreadsheet and said, here are all the future developments planned across all the city of Hoover, and a forecast based on the ratio of students that are existing now and what there is to be considered in the future, both from the west side and east side of I-65. So yeah, I take this very seriously. I have kids in the school system as well, and it's something I think is very important to arm Dr. Murphy, the school board, the staff members of Hoover with as much information as we can possibly get. And it wasn't a requirement to do that. I just felt it was important to do.
And John,
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
we acknowledge that also, that again, as we shared, we've been clearly at the table. The only differential for us at this point is just the shift of those homes from south pulling into your proposal here. But please understand, we've clearly had those numbers, we have those numbers, we've been thoughtful about those numbers. Those numbers were included in the proposed plan that went to the judge that has been preliminarily approved. This is a little bit of a new wrinkle in shifting some of those homes, but we clearly took these homes into account.
Thank you. Yes, in the back there.
Where is Black Ridge? Is it on this map?
No, sir. Black Ridge, so the parkway ends here. There's an extension of approximately 4,800 feet through Wilburn to the railroad, first set of railroad tracks, and that's where Black Ridge starts.
And it will connect into the road right there?
Yes, sir. That's where it'll connect, at the end of Wilburn. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what discussions took place with which government entities regarding whether to make Stadium Trace the 4-lane with the back door that you mentioned versus a gated community, because public health and safety trumps everything. So what can you tell me about that?
I can tell you that we proposed it to the previous city council, and they voted on the current plan that we have today. And I think that's the simplest way to describe that. But we met with all the staff members of the city of Hoover. The city has a very good process to go through to meet with the staff from an engineering standpoint, their landscape department, Mr. House from a consulting standpoint. And we go through, and then we'll meet with each of the council members, we'll meet with the planning and zoning commissioners. All those discussions were had and came to that conclusion. And then the council chose to vote on it. Yes, sir. And then I'll come back to the back, I'm sorry.
Jonathan, if Stadium Trace gets widened, you're losing the entire beauty of Trace Crossings. The whole thing could be down the tube. It'll just be another hodgepodge. That's half the beauty of Trace Crossings is coming in down the Parkway and Brock's Gap Parkway.
I understand.
It's gonna ruin the whole thing.
I don't think and I think your comment is based on the level of traffic today, and you don't want to increase traffic
It's
because
like
of
there
the.
now.
And I think we have gotten clear notification of those concerns, and
You gotta find some way other than Stadium Trace to get out of this mess.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
There's that one area that's undeveloped, the top of Stadium Trace, it's not on the map. It's near the daycare, kind of near Walgreens, that whole area is being surveyed right now, and I'm kind of.
This area here?
I think so, yeah. I see it's being surveyed. Is there any plans, talk of what's going to be there?
I don't know. We don't have any ownership of that property or plans for developing it. It's owned by two different landowners. I think U.S. Steel may or may still own this or may have sold it. And then the balance is owned by a family that owns the 155 acres. Yes, sir.
I guess one of the things about this traffic is, and maybe many of us feel a sense of urgency is, what worries me is when I hear you talk about maybe 10 years down the road we'll have this ranch developed. I think if you thought about the worst case scenario about what might happen to this neighborhood like in the next 5 years. So people are unhappy because of traffic, commercial development, destroying land. You got people moving out of this neighborhood, housing values start dropping, crime may become more. People don't want to go to school because of the way the neighborhood changes. So in 5 to 10 years, if you can't fix this traffic problem, this could have a great impact on.
I think the 10-year time frame is largely beyond our control for an interstate interchange. But I don't think I don't think anybody is proposing that it has to be 10 years before there's any relief to traffic, if that makes sense. That's that one feature, and that's the process. And to be very candid, 10 years is probably ambitious to get that interchange in place. But that's not the only way to try to alleviate traffic. That's where we go back to our inventory that we just received yesterday and try to find other potential solutions to begin the funding process to bring some relief, subject to the approval that has to happen.
I guess again, it's just concerning because you have such a detailed plan for all the house, for all the parts and everything. But I don't hear one outlet idea yet. You say that maybe this is coming, but I'm like, this just doesn't seem like it was well thought out. If you did all these other things, but you just didn't have an outlet plan. And so that's why we're worried, is because basically saying we don't really have it, maybe it's coming, but there really isn't that outlet plan. I think that's why there's so much concern.
And if I can make one more comment too, the Trace Crossings PUD I think was created in maybe 1987 or somewhere in the late 80s. And it's like one of the things we're considering here, the parcels 4 and 6 is all zone plan industrial right now. So there's 110 acres there that could have one use versus what we're proposing today. And part of the assumption is, well, U.S. still hasn't sold the property. That doesn't mean that U.S. still has tried to sell the property, or it doesn't mean that right for someone to come in and buy it and put industrial uses there. And then there's a different challenge. But the property, when the original PUD was created by U.S. Steel, proposed planned industrial in that location. It's been that way for 30 years. Who's to say they don't sell it next month, next year, and then all of a sudden we have a different type of traffic that's accessing Stadium Trace Parkway. I guess our proposal tonight is to say what we think would be a better consideration than 110 acres of planned industrial is what we've proposed here. And I think it would have a lesser impact in that particular portion. Yes, ma'am.
Jonathan, I got one more question. I'm curious, and this is a sort of a political question. U.S. Steel's not here tonight. Oh, hi. Is U.S. Steel holding you guys hostage on that property if they don't get the zoning, and therefore they won't sell number 4 to you, since I know you only have an agreement to purchase?
Well, we haven't gotten to a whole hostage situation.
we
have them outnumbered tonight too. I got 4, they have 1.
Just want to put that out there. And hopefully that the city won't allow that to occur, because the city's best interest and the police powers need to be at play here.
Well, I will say this, U.S. Steel, and certainly we understand a zoning process is that, it's a process. And it's going to require more and more discussion between us as the two parties of U.S. Steel and Signature Homes. This feedback is very helpful to us, and hopefully we can come to some conclusions that will help the overall process. Any other questions? Before we, we'll make the same presentation again Monday night to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And from there, then it will move to City Council. There'll be 2 additional presentations there. And in between, we will work on, we've got the questions documented, we also have it videoed. We'll come back and write out all the questions, we'll send it out to the neighborhoods to make sure we did get those questions, and we'll get to work on them. So, yes, sir.
Just let them know I'll be around if anybody has any questions for U.S. Steel Outfits.
Okay, and Jamie is here with U.S. Steel, and he says he's gonna hang around if anybody wants to ask Jamie any direct questions tonight. And I don't have to leave, I'll stay all night, so.
Where is the best, or what is the best way for us to voice our concerns? Is it to wait until the next meeting on Monday? Is there a place or a person that we should contact with our personal concerns with this? What's the best way to approach that?
So I'll give you my experience, and I'll let either Mr. Rice or Mr. Westhoven comment on that, but twofold. One, if you send it to City Hall, and it's not some magical place, but if you call their number or you want to send an email to it, you can go to their website, you can email it directly, and they will distribute it to every councilman, to the planning and zoning members, and to the staff members of the city. I've experienced that firsthand. Secondly, so I would not wait until a meeting to express my opinions or concerns that I have. Again, we've got great feedback tonight. We're going to share those questions with the city so that those who weren't here have that information. And then secondly, I would still present any questions, comments, or concerns at the public hearings. Yes, sir, and then I'll come to the back.
The cross-section studies that you showed, will that information be available Monday night?
Yes, sir, and I can bring copies to the neighborhood if you'd like, some larger copies that you can have to read. I had a couple of them that weren't as pretty, I guess, that I've dropped off in the neighborhood at Chestnut Ridge that are available to look at as well.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
I live in Lake Trace, and I lived here for 11 years. I came from a community in Georgia where, I mean, it was just build after build, new school after new school. So when I first moved here and, you know, the rezoning was a cuss word here, and I came from a town where I never moved and I got rezoned to a total of 6 different schools. So, the one thing I will say, and I want to thank you, I want to thank our superintendent, city council people, board of ed people, and the people here in Hoover. If we don't speak up, no one's going to hear. This development, this sports complex, I don't know about you all, but I never heard anything about the planning of it until it went through. The only way we're going to get anything done is to come together and speak up, speak loud and clear to our city council. We elect those people. They in turn put people on the board of ed, but we elect the city council, and if we don't make good choices, we are stuck with the town that we have. And so much of all these homes, if I'm not mistaken, it's been zoned, it's been approved by the board to be built. It's just a matter now of how is it going to get used? And I totally agree. I have a daughter at the high school. One way in and one way out is not safe. And yes, this new road gives more in and out. Yes, it still dumps it onto Stadium Trace, but there's nothing that's going to change that right now. Those houses in Wilburn are going to be built. The sports complex is here. It got approved by our city council, and if we're not happy with that, we need to speak up and speak loud.
I agree, and I agree with, I enjoy having this format because that's what makes the best plans, is when we get the feedback from the community. And I'm, as I said, I'm a Hoover resident too. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, so what is the time frame? 'Cause I know we're looking at this tonight, it's almost like, boom, it's gonna happen tomorrow, but what is the time frame for all this to come to fruition and you would have the 2,000 homes and so forth? You're not gonna have those tomorrow. So what are you gonna have? What's your time frame?
No, I think that would be greater than 10 years to see that level of construction being done. far beyond that. I mean, in the history of Birmingham, Ross Bridge, as an example, has been the fastest selling and built community, certainly in Hoover and in Birmingham as far back as we know. In 11 years, there have been approximately 1,600 homes built in Ross Bridge. And again, that was the best number ever. So somewhere north of 10 years.
Okay, so surely, I forgot your Mr. Bryson.
Yes.
Okay, surely in that time period, I disagree, you're gonna need some help on setting your trace, but you have a window of opportunity to make that adjustment, since it's not gonna happen next week.
I think that's a good point. And I say greater than 10 years, I don't know. I don't see it being less than that, though. I'll come back, we'll start here, okay? Yes, ma'am.
When are lots released, the first lots released that people will purchase?
In any of what's proposed?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is it April?
If this plan was, you mean in Wilburn?
Yeah.
Oh, before summertime, maybe early summer. We have one here, yes, sir.
We appreciate you being here and explaining this all. And I was really wondered what's going on. But the further I hear and listen to this, I certainly don't want you putting any more in here. That's my personal opinion. And I don't know about the rest of the people, but you're not ready for it. We're not ready for it.
Well, every proposal I've had for Trace Crossing, the overall has been a net reduction, a significant reduction. While this particular one moves homes from 2 other areas adjacent to it, overall, what we have presented over the years has been a net significant reduction in Trace Crossings. So I understand and respect that comment. Yes, sir.
How is your projection for the student impact of Hoover Schools for Ross Bridge? How, has that been measured against what it's turned out now that it's mostly complete?
Well, Ross Bridge was a joint venture between U.S. Steel and Daniel Corporation. It was submitted back in 2002, so I didn't prepare a study for it. We purchased land in there and built a fair amount of the homes, but we were not involved in the original planning of it.
You're currently doing 2 subdivisions in Ross Bridge right now, is that right?
3.
3. And any of those, how many of those are built out of the 3? Are they still being built out, 90%, any of them? Or, basically what I'm trying to get to is when we have projections for impact, do we ever go back and verify how valid those assumptions turned out to be?
We evaluate every single neighborhood that we build based on the demographics that we sell to. So sure, we evaluate them all. And that's why I was able to go and provide her a study based on factual information we have with our history. And Ross Bridge varies. There's so many different types of neighborhoods in Ross Bridge. There's some areas that have 0 kids in them. There's some that have a lot. But the Ross Bridge as a whole has an average. Well, averages don't mean much because of the variation across each type of community.
And that's why our questions about whether the size of homes and type of homes you want to build are important for that kind of projection.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I think we're missing in the city, no one's intentionally building for active adults. And that's one component of that we think would be important in the area, because nobody's specifically building anything for that community. That's something that we think would be important in some of the areas that we mentioned, whether it be Wilburn, or whether it be this Fleming property, or whether it be the area parcel 4 there. But this is something we're doing a study on now.
They mentioned Ross Bridge. That was built in the middle of nowhere. And the road that leads from there back out to 150, all these subdivisions are coming up along the side of that thing, and they're gonna find the same problems that we are having here.
It's a 2-lane parkway. I know. I've either lived in Ross Bridge or I've lived in Trace Crossings. That's been the 2 places I've gone home. And it's 2 lanes and...
If they realized what it was gonna be like, they should have made the roads wider to start with.
Hey, I'm a tax-paying citizen just like you, and I'd love to have no traffic and no delays. I think the tough job of the city, and which is why I'm not on city council or working for the city, is they gotta find the balance, and I think here in this...
all helicopters.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is gonna be gated, correct?
Yes,
They
ma'am.
will have access to Highway 52 as well as Stadium Trace and work both ways.
That is correct. So some of the traffic in Black Ridge will be able to go out on 52, which will reduce the amount on Stadium Trace. Thank you.
Didn't mean to malign you.